when you speak about gender and things like that, these days, particularly amongst a lot of more secular subsets of the Muslim community, we're seeing a rise in trying to stab out what people are calling toxic masculinity these days.
Okay. Yeah.
So again, a lot of sisters are now buying into this rhetoric. A lot of men are buying into this as well. You know what? A man can't be a true man. You can't be what you just said, protector, provider. These are technically, or as per Deen and Islam and things, male, let's say, dominated roles. But that's now considered toxic. You can't be that way.
Man, you're gonna get me in so much trouble.
I'm baiting you. I'm baiting you, but you're gonna fall for this one.
There's a lot of females here.
Okay, you know what? Yeah, you know what? What am I gonna do? Again, one quick disclaimer. I am trying to stay as committed to the word of Allah and what I can understand comprehensively from the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ as possible. And my principle, just so you understand my thought process, because there may be many of you that have a great criticism of my thought process, and that's completely fine by me. I believe when you study the book of Allah, the text has a certain direction. It creates a certain kind of mindset. The imagery is that of a river flowing in a certain direction. When you study the authentic Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, the text is also flowing in the same direction. And then you find certain ideas that certain people present that's going in the opposite direction. It's trying to swim upstream. I'm not so convinced when strands show up that are swimming upstream when so much of the text is flowing downstream. You understand? So that was the abstract kind of principle thought. Now on the toxic masculinity, toxic femininity, the Quran is very good at declaring Allah as the Rabb of men and women and saying, you can never have justice between each other. If I let all women decide how divorces or divorce court or inheritance or any issue should be legislated, men are going to get slaughtered. And if I let men decide entirely how assets should be divided, women will be out on the streets. That is a fact of life. Let's just understand the fact of life, right? Power corrupts, absolute power, you guys know the phrase?
Yep.
Corrupts absolutely, right? The only one who can broker a just equilibrium between two sides on the contested issues, it can only be Allah. And one of the reasons we call Allah the guide is because He's not biased towards males and biased towards females. He's the creator of both of them, right? So if He reveals something, He knows who and what He created. أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ. Now, having said that, it's really interesting that in the Quran, Allah talks about, men that are drunk on their power, and He talks about women that are drunk on their power, and how they demonstrate that in different ways. The archetype for a man drunk on his power in the Quran are the likes of Fir'aun. He's drunk on his power, and a lot of his behavior, you may not have the pyramids that the Fir'aun had, or the Egyptian empire that the Fir'aun has, but you may be drunk on the same arrogant juice, and you might exhibit some of the same behaviors he's exhibited. So you should learn from his example to look inside yourself. I should look inside myself. What Fir'auni qualities have I developed? That's the point. Similarly, a woman from the same country, Egypt, I don't know why Allah picked on Egypt so much, but He did. But He picked a woman from Egypt who's drunk on her power. And she is going to use whatever ability she has to ruin the other that she feels stepped out of line. And that's the wife of the minister in the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, right? Now the problem is I'm a man. So I'm going to be like, Fir'aun's bad, but Zulaykha, she's bad. Because if I'm burnt by something, then I'm going to just point, see these toxic women? That's why Surah Yusuf is my favorite story, right? And then women, oh yeah? Oh, you think we're abusers? What about you? You a bunch of Fir'auns, and then you're going to go the other way. You see what I'm saying? So again, what's happening? We're imposing ourselves onto the book. We're imposing our biases onto Allah's book, and we're selecting what suits our agenda or justifies our rage, and we're saying it's actually Allah's rage. It's not mine, it's Allah's. No, you're not honest with yourself when you do that. So the Quran is actually, it's pretty unapologetic about what the line is between the two. And I think a lot of the conversation of blue pill and red pill that's happening online is actually both overreactions. There's this one overreaction gives rise to the other overreaction. And if you study, because I like studying rhetoric and how people construct their arguments. A lot of times, like for example, red pill arguments, they'll take the worst examples on the other side and then bash that as if they won some kind of victory. And then what will the blue pill do? Take the worst examples on the red pill side and toxic masculinity, and then beat that over the head as if they got some kind of triumph. But two extremes are just that. They're two extremes. And the other thing you should know in humanity throughout history and even after technology's development, the loudest voices are always the most extreme voices. They're always the most extreme. They don't represent the moment.